And we're live for the latest episode of Nick Valencia Live. Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday or Tuesday. I don't know. I think it's Tuesday. The week is just blowing by. There's a lot that has gone on since the last time we were here with you guys. And we want to start in Kenner, Louisiana, where we saw U.S. Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino, and we got a little bit of insight into his internal communications. He was in a car, in the backseat of a car, when one of the local photojournalists there was able to zoom in on his communications. And if you guys thought that Border Patrol and DHS, Trump's deportation forces, were acting with impunity, it's because they see themselves as untouchable. We saw in this communication between Bovino and what looks like a WhatsApp group, he indicated, "Isn't it cool? Kind of cool, we're this massive wrecking crew and the idiots can't do anything to us." We can only presume that the idiots that he's talking about are the Americans that have stood up against these aggressive actions on the streets of America. We saw that happen. And we also saw Trump's deportation forces really get aggressive in Minnesota, where not only did we see federal agents in a university, Augsburg University, point assault weapons at students and staff, according to university officials, we also saw, something that we hear all the time from conservatives: do it the right way. If only people did it the right way. We saw a video from Somali Snaps on social media of somebody who was here with a legal work permit and in the process of an asylum claim. And you see this on my social media play out. The Border Patrol agents that are taking him into custody know that this man has a pending asylum claim, and it doesn't matter. They take him into custody anyway. So this notion that if we just did it the right way, or if these individuals just did it the right way, nothing would happen, it's a bunch of garbage. And that's why we want to focus also what's happening right now. We have some breaking news happening right now in Washington, D.C., where about a couple minutes ago, it started testimony from 5 Americans who have been detained by ICE. This is a theme that you've seen a lot here on this show, this idea that Kristi Noem, the DHS secretary, says, no U.S. citizens or no Americans are being caught up in this targeted immigration enforcement. That's just not true. And today, U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal, as well as Representative Robert Garcia, are going to hear from 5 U.S. citizens who were detained by ICE and held for an extended period of time. And there's been a misrepresentation of the truth, because in some of these cases, you hear Americans were assaulting these federal agents, when the reality of what happened, like what you're about to hear described by the lawyer representing these 2 individuals, the reality of what happened is much, much different than what the feds are describing. I want to throw to an interview that we recorded earlier this morning with Michael Carrillo. We had him on the program a couple weeks ago. He's a civil rights attorney representing nearly a dozen Americans who were detained by ICE. 2 of those clients that he has are in the middle of their testimony right now. Take a listen to this interview that we had with him earlier today. This morning by Michael Carrillo, the civil rights attorney who's representing 2 of the 5 U.S. citizens who are going to testify this morning in Washington, D.C. Good morning, Michael. How are you?
Good morning, Nick. Good. Thanks for having me.
So tell us about this big day.
Well, like you said, 2 of our clients are going to be testifying at a hearing today. They're calling it a forum. And I think it's important today because they're going to talk about their experiences as U.S. citizens who are caught up in these ICE and immigration raids. And it goes directly against what Kristi Noem has been saying, that no U.S. citizens have been caught up in these raids, which is totally false.
Yeah, let's drill down on the specifics of these 2 cases. Andrew Velez was a U.S. citizen who was allegedly, alleged to have assaulted a federal agent, but that seems to be a misrepresentation of the truth. Tell us about it.
Sure. So she'll explain it very well. She does all the time. She's a hero in my eyes because of how she's come forward to rise to the occasion. But what happened was immigration officers were in downtown LA. They jump out of their cars. They run over to try and get a bunch of people that are vending food or selling food on the street. Mm-hmm. Andrea, at 9:30 in the morning, just getting dropped off by her mom and sister to go to work, gets caught up in the raid. She gets run over by one of these agents. And as they're coming back, pissed off because they couldn't get these food vendors, they say, "You know what? You're coming with us." And she says, wait, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm a U.S. citizen. They start speaking to her in Spanish. She says, no, I speak English. I'm a U.S. citizen. They didn't care. They took her to MDC, the Metropolitan Detention Center. They hold her for 2 days. She's released on bail. Luckily, a few days later, her charges are completely dismissed. But that's just another occasion where immigration officials are just wrapping anybody that happens to be brown while walking in the streets of L.A.
Yeah, they alleged that she assaulted a federal agent, and her parents, her family actually thought it was a kidnapping. They didn't know what was going on, right? I mean, these individuals, they not like they're identifying themselves, they're masked up. It's terrifying what's happening. The other case that you have is Javier Ramirez. Tell us about that. He was a business owner inside his business, and then he was detained as well.
Yes, Border Patrol, ICE agents come to his business without a warrant. They come into his property, and he comes out from the back. His business is selling cars, reselling car parts, things of that nature. Immigration officials walk into his business without a warrant. They start barking orders, and they look at him and they say, "Get him, he's a Mexican." And boom, they immediately go to him. They drop him to the floor. They pull him outside. They detain him. They arrest him. They charge him with a crime. They hold him for 5 days at the Metropolitan Detention Center. Eventually, charges are dismissed because the video comes out. And instead of the officers who claimed that he was hiding behind cars, trying to get away from officers, the video shows he just comes out, starts asking questions, and boom, they drop him to the ground. Again, charges were dismissed. Another unfortunate situation where U.S. citizen gets caught up in these ICE raids, and his rights were totally violated.
We know DHS Secretary Kristi Noem has been misrepresenting the truth. She's saying it's not, not happening. We know it is. I want to ask you, though, I did speak to a former ICE prosecutor who was telling me that the actions of these DSH agents, although they're aggressive, they're not unlawful, they're against policy. When you hear that, when you hear a full-throated defense like that from another attorney on the other side of things here representing DHS, what's your reaction to that, Michael?
Well, in Javier's situation, you have an unconstitutional entrance into a private property. That's number one. With Andrea, you have somebody that is just walking on the street and happens to be Latino, gets picked up and thrown in, and they fabricate charges. So to me, I mean, this screams unconstitutional violations of the law and of the Constitution. And so to me, I just can't back that up. Now, if this person that I don't know who they are, sure. I'd love to present them our situation and see how they react, because I find that it's against the law and against the Constitution.
It is. I mean, and from what we're seeing in our eyes, they're basically telling us not to believe what we're seeing. And then we're seeing in other instances where these DHS agents show up to residences or businesses, they're pushing the cameras the other way. And you have to wonder, if what they're doing is so lawful and so justified, why would they want to push a camera away from an incident? What are the other things, while I have you for the next couple of minutes, what are the other things that are really bothering you about what you continue to see out there on the streets of America and in LA where you're based?
Just more violations of the Constitution. I mean, when you have situations like Justice Kavanaugh basically green lighting these activities, it creates a situation where essentially the Supreme Court has allowed these activities to go on and will allow them to keep going on.
The community is calling them Kavanaugh stops now.
Yes, and that's what they are, which is, to me, an unconstitutional stop. But you see it going on in LA, Chicago, Portland. It's just spreading to Charlotte. I mean, you name it. They're just bombarding these communities with these violations of the law.
And last question for you. There's other U.S. citizens who are not in Los Angeles who may be watching this and seeing somebody like you step up. What advice, what counsel do you have for others who may be confronted with a similar situation that your clients have been?
Video record. I mean, the biggest thing that we've seen is that when there's been video recordings of these incidents, the truth gets exposed. And that means criminal charges dismissed. That means accountability in terms of filing, like we have on behalf of Andrea and Javier, a Federal Tort Claims Act, the first step in the legal process towards a lawsuit. So what I always recommend is just video record from a safe distance, so that way you're not impeding the investigation like they always like to say. But video record, accountability, have friends with you. That's all I can say.
Well, Michael Carrillo, we know you guys are holding people accountable. We're holding the government accountable with all the cases and the individuals that you're representing. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you think is important to know, or anything that you'd like to talk about? Now's your chance.
No, I just hope that people live stream this hearing today. It's at 3 p.m. Eastern. Please tune in. For those of you that haven't seen U.S. citizens being detained and their stories, please check in and see these really, really important stories.
Thank you so much for taking the time. We know you have a busy day today. Good luck.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it.
And that was civil rights attorney Michael Carrillo, who joined the program. And that testimony is happening right now in front of those lawmakers. We hope that there is a difference made here. And I know there's some people here in the chat. I love doing pre-recorded interviews because I get to look at what you guys are talking about. This is testimony that belongs in front of the Supreme Court. You know, people really need to see this. And we talk about Kavanaugh stops. If you guys don't know what those are, the Supreme Court and Brett Kavanaugh, Justice Kavanaugh, effectively allowing racial profiling, people being pulled over simply because of the color of their skin. And that's the moniker that these stops have been giving, these so-called Kavanaugh stops, where we're seeing clients like the ones that Mike Carrillo represents. People pull over simply because of their Latinidad, simply because of the color of their skin. That's something that we're going to keep an eye on. We want to turn now, though, to John Russell, who joins us. John Russell is a journalist who I met at the Pew Research Center when I was there just a couple of weeks ago. He works at More Perfect Union, and we wanted to talk to him about his latest investigative report, where data centers are being bulldozed, basically, into the communities in Appalachia. We have a clip from his report.
Coming across the border versus, say, billionaires or something like that, who's got the most influence over the problems that you think we face as a country?
Millionaires.
Yeah.
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 Do you think you have more in common with migrant from Mexico or Donald J. Trump?
Great question.
A migrant from Mexico.
Yeah.
A migrant from Mexico. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because we're out here working to survive to feed our families.
There are a lot of theories about why a place like this would go for a billionaire like Trump. Maybe it's because Trump said the quiet part out loud, that politicians in both parties had abandoned the working class. Maybe he gave them someone to blame for their problems: immigrants, queer kids, radical socialists. But here's another theory. They voted for Trump because both parties felt captured, caught up in a system that no one here could influence.
And John Russell from More Perfect Union joins us now. Thank you for taking the time with us, John. I appreciate you showing up, man.
Hey, Nick. Thanks for having me on your show. It was good to meet you, and thanks for running our clip there. That one wasn't about the data centers, but it does feed in nicely to the conversation that you're just having with your guest.
Yeah, so I just realized that now that we played the other clip, you guys actually won an Emmy for this one. Tell me about the story that we just played.
So we went down to document a really unique county in the entire country. It's the only county that voted 144 years in a row for Democrats before flipping to Donald Trump by one of the largest margins in the country. So we wanted to understand what motivated that behavior. And you can hear a lot of surprising opinions when you really get into it with the people living there.
What is it about being within the community that allows you to pull back? I mean, I'm not baiting you. I want to hear in your own words. Like, you're from this community, so you're able to pull a layer back that others aren't. What is it about being from there that allows you this access?
I grew up in Appalachia, and I think, Appalachia is a place that a lot of people think about, a lot of pundits talk about, but we're really misrepresented on what we actually believe here. I think a lot of people have very strong political opinions that are very loosely held. You could hear in that character that we are interviewing. She's a Donald Trump supporter. She would support a third term of Donald Trump. She's living in Kentucky, thousands of miles away from the border, saying that the border is her number one issue. But when we really get into a conversation about class in Appalachia, this is a place that's been oppressed by out-of-state billionaires for a long time. And we're not being spoken to on class terms. And when you do that with a character like we just saw, it's a hop, skip, and a jump to the realization that people coming across the border are fighting to feed their kids, just like the people in Appalachia are, or that kids leaving Appalachia are leaving for the same reason that other people are coming across the border. These big companies have destroyed the places that they're coming from. That's the conversation that we should be having and is possible here.
Who is taking advantage of the community? And is it a lack of education? Is it a lack of, I guess, access to people that are different than them? Or, I mean, the world is so global, it seems now. You could, get on your phone. I'm in the Central Valley with grape pickers and, guys that are playing football, picking grapes in the morning and then playing football in the afternoon. They go on TikTok and they see that what they're doing is not normal. So I guess this idea of like being isolated, they must know, you guys must know like what the world is beyond, is that helping change minds there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the people who are taking advantage of folks in Appalachia are the ones that are taking advantage of any of us anywhere. You know, so many of us experience the world through our smartphones, but those algorithms are more and more, they're the target of billionaires who want to control our media. You look at TikTok, for example, like Larry Ellison wants to buy that out. All of these billionaires are realizing the immense power of social media and of people connecting, and they want to have control over what folks are seeing. So I never put the problem at the feet of, you know, people here. You are responsible for what goes into your eyes and ears, but I think why Appalachia is going for, you know, all of my YouTube comments are saying these people vote against their own interests. Well, it's kind of impossible to vote in your own interest. You know, really anybody who's in office, they're serving the agenda of this donor class that has really captured our politics, which was kind of the thesis of that piece that we just watched.
Wow, man, you know, not voting against your own interests, but I mean, how could you, that just like landed, I'm processing that right now. I've never heard that before, right? I mean, because it's so much, it's like feeds into this idea of like the haves and the have-nots. And it's this question that you asked in that piece, which I just saw for the first time there. You know, it's something that I think about all the time, that Trump and Biden have more in common with each other than they have with any single one of us. And that idea doesn't seem to filter down and permeate within our culture and society. Instead, there's that wedge that's created where somebody takes advantage of, you know, this lack of understanding and makes people other and makes people think like, yeah, I am better than you, or you are different than me, and I don't understand you and I don't like it.
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of big questions have pretty simple answers, and divide and conquer is really easy to find at the root of many of our political conversations. And you know, we try to have a different one in our pieces.
So I mean, that begs the question, we focus so much on immigration. What are the attitudes of the ICE raids and the Trump deportation forces in America there?
Well, I think, you know, I can't speak for everybody here. And obviously there are going to be people who support these kind of actions. But I think what's really interesting is when you see resistance in Appalachia to these ICE raids, like we just saw in North Carolina. And I think one of the things that comes up when I'm talking to people around here, you know, we don't see this modeled by leaders, but really a way to think of these ICE raids is they're using vulnerable people as a smokescreen to build a police state that is feeding into this existing surveillance infrastructure. And that's been expanding, you know, since 9/11. We're all, you know, in conservative parts of the country, like where I live, Appalachia, there's always a fear of government overreach and surveillance and stuff like that. But while we've been so focused on that coming from the government, we've lost sight of the fact that really powerful companies have a computer following us around in our pocket, right? And these ICE raids, what are they doing? They're increasing the power of the government to police vulnerable communities. It is only a matter of time before that starts falling on your doorstep. And when you see people in Appalachia, like in North Carolina, organizing to drive ICE out of their town, I think you can start to see the roots of many different populations opposing this kind of overreach where you wouldn't expect it.
Yeah, we saw in Charlotte, you know, this account that I follow, Charlotte, Litt. We saw people using their Second Amendment rights there in Charlotte, you know, coming out and being like, hey, don't come into my neighborhood. I know my rights. I know my Second Amendment rights. Are you surprised that we haven't seen more sort of sovereign citizen types or people that, you know, think that government is overreaching? Are you surprised we haven't seen more of them on the streets?
I'll answer it this way. I think the reason why you don't see more of that is because we are shaped by the media that we consume, and the media that we consume is owned. Media mergers are in the news today. You have Netflix making a bid to take over Warner Brothers and Paramount, and the Ellisons who are sniffing around TikTok trying to jump in there as well. Those media companies that are owned by billionaires do not have it in their incentive to frame these ICE raids as an offense to somebody who might be a sovereign citizen. So that really isn't out there in the media. And if it were, I think you would see a much different response to this. So I think that's why independent media is so important. And that's why I'm glad to be able to, you know, work at a place like More Perfect Union and introduce those into the mainstream.
That's fascinating, man. I mean, you've dropped so many bombs here. Like thinking about how the framing is, you're exactly right. Like this is government overreach in textbook definition. You know, lawless, warrantless raids, people masked up, not identifying themselves. You have no idea. The one of the girls that's testifying right now on Capitol Hill, her family thought she was being kidnapped. They called in 911 because she was being kidnapped in their eyes. And you know, it's almost, I mean, I'm going to say the quiet part out loud. Most of these people are brown. They're not white Americans, you know, they're not light-skinned Americans. And I think if we saw more of that, there might be that shock to people who think, look, this is not my problem. This has nothing to do with me. Those people, they're here illegally. They got what's coming to them, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, I think we need to think more about where this is all going, because obviously we're all living in a time where it's just insane to consume the news. And if you look out into the future, we got a lot of disruption happening. We have AI that is replacing and disrupting a lot of our jobs. We've already gone through deindustrialization. I mean, my area of the country saw that forever ago. But where does this all add up to? Because, you know, the rich are getting richer. Ordinary people who have to work for a living are struggling. Now we have to deal with AI that's displacing jobs, and this government that is very cozy with the, you know, billionaire beneficiaries of all of this. Palantir, you know, more police and ICE actions create a demand for what Palantir sells. Okay, so what I really want to impress on people is, who is this all for? It's not long before it shows up on your doorstep, because if you start making noise and really threatening power about your job being lost to these forces in the future, that police state is going to land on you. Just right now, it's landing on vulnerable populations.
And that's a good segue to your story and investigative piece on data centers, you know, and how, you know, people are being taken advantage of, talking about the robots taking over. These data centers are fueling AI, and they're not going to, when they build these data centers in Appalachia, these jobs, you know, I was watching your piece last night, 50 to 200 jobs maybe they create, they're not going to locals. These are specialized jobs. So it's like, deal with it in your backyard, but have no benefit from it being in your backyard.
Yeah, and you know, that was an admission of a guy who stands to benefit by these data centers going in. The story that's happening is in one of the poorest counties in America, Mingo County, West Virginia. Organizers uncovered some permits that were for what would amount to one of the second largest natural gas-fired power plant in the state. This is part of the data center expansion sweeping across the nation, where they're building microgrids to feed the enormous power demands for these. And, you know, there's a guy who owns a golf course on top of an old strip mine. He's trying to get out from under it and sell it to host one of these power plant sites. And he admitted, you know, these jobs probably aren't going to go for locals, and 50 to 200's a hopeful number. So not a lot in it for the people who haven't had clean drinking water for a long time.
And what's really striking to me is the interview that you had with, you know, one of the local residents there in Mingo County, who was like, they think we're dumb. They think that we're dumb, and they think that we're just going to let this happen. They go, though, to use their First Amendment right to show up at these meetings and at these, you know, community, I guess, you know, they're local politicians, right? The council is equivalent of the city council, and they're showing up to talk about and ask questions, but they're getting half answers. You know, it's like, even when they do show up to ask questions, no one's taking them seriously. I mean, what's the remedy here, John?
You know, I'll go big on this picture too. A lot of the character you just mentioned, the people who are standing up to this data center, who are getting half answers, these are Trump voters. These are people who voted for Donald Trump, and they don't even regret their vote yet. And
there
yet
she is right here. You're looking at her there now.
Right there. And yet they are the ones, when confronted with a corporation who wants to ruin their community even further, they are the ones to stand up and organize and fight back against these billionaires. So I want to urge any liberals in the audience listening, a point that I try to make all the time. We are living in an era where partisan politics, Democrats and Republicans, makes less sense to understand what's happening than class politics do. You know, if you have got to go to work in the morning, you've got more in common with other people who have got to do that. If you're down in Mingo County and you haven't had drinking water, and there's a corporation who's going to come in here and take the very little resources that you have more in common with the people around you. And I think what we're seeing is a resurgence of people identifying that, and it's shifting the way that we do politics. You got Donald Trump, who took over a major American political party. Now you have folks like Zohran Mamdani taking it over. And I think that reflects what people are realizing, which is it is the billionaires versus everybody else. It is not left and right. It's up and down.
We have heard this socialist movement really take off and spread in Los Angeles and in Charlotte. I saw the PSL leading these rallies. I asked a Democratic strategist if people, if the Democrats are aware. He's like, this is a conversation more so for party activists. And he thinks that people just really want to look at somebody who's going to help them, whether or not this label, of socialism sticks, or if it's used as a dirty word by Republicans to push back and stamp out these movements. I really do think that people are seeing this classism, though. They are seeing the conglomerization of the news. And that's something that I do want to talk about with you, because we met in this new media summit, in this, a cabal of independent journalists who are really speaking truth to power, right? And this is so important because I think, and I know you do too, John, that this is the anecdote. This is the remedy to what we're seeing in this classism happening, the haves and the have-nots, the conglomerization of news, the Ellison families out there, the Redbirds, the Saudis, the whoever they are, they're billionaires and they're so much different than us, but they have convinced us that we are the ones that need to turn against each other.
And that's their job. I like to say that we are already in a class war that we are losing. And I like to point out in my pieces too, the difference between $1 million and $1 billion, because a lot of the times it can get lost. You can think, well, a super rich person is somebody I might see walking around on the street. But the difference between $1 million and $1 billion is almost $1 billion. The people who own controlling shares in every market face almost no accountability and have really captured both of the major American political parties. And, I just think that people are seeing that, and it becomes all the more clear when, say, a data center, which, could be used for massive public good. I'm not saying that AI couldn't be publicly regulated or deployed to make all of our lives easier or even make us all work less. Mm-hmm. That is a possibility. The reason why we don't see it going in that direction is because we haven't really asserted power over the people who are forcing this all on us. We didn't have a say in AI just showing up in all of the apps that you use, in your Google search, in your Instagram suggestions. There's been no public control over it, and I think more and more people are realizing that we need to assert that now.
Tell me about More Perfect Union. Tell me about why what you guys are doing is so different. I mean, you guys have created this platform that I was talking to somebody at dinner. We went to have a toy drive for Haiti, and the lady that sat next to me was like, "Oh, were you there at the summit with More Perfect Union? I love what they do." I mean, this is a real story. So tell me, why do you think what you guys are doing is getting so much traction in all communities?
I think working people want to see themselves reflected in media. And, so what we're doing, that's what we're doing. We're trying to build power for working people. You and I talked about this notion of objectivity, which I don't think there's
I don't believe in it.
Right. There's never objectivity in media. It reflects the people who create it. And most of the media that reaches your ears are created by, rich people. And if you're out here living in Appalachia, it's not created by anybody here when you turn on the TV. Certainly not at the major news networks. So what we're doing at More Perfect Union, and shout out to Faz Shakir, who leads the thing, and everybody at the team, because any of these pieces is really a team effort. But it just is. It's not that special. We're just centering working class people, and I think it's finding a demand out there for all the people who watch it to see themselves reflected in this and see themselves as part of the fight, to be able to have control over what's happening in your communities, in your life. It turns out that people really like that and they want that.
Dude, it's so important. And I saw it right away in you. Like, there's something about you, like, magnetic, charismatic, like you stand out in a crowd without even trying to be standing out, like you are not like the, hey, look at me. But like, for some reason I gravitated towards, not for some reason, I mean, there was a reason I gravitated towards you. You were the coolest guy in the room, man. And like your approach to journalism is so authentic, and I just love it. And I think in full disclosure, I'm biased towards Appalachia. I married a woman whose family is from Appalachia. When I met her, she had just come from the possum trot in Kentucky for a family reunion, you know? So it's like, I see you as being a real flesh and bones journalist. And so while I have you here, you know, people got to get their flowers, brother. You got to get your flowers. We get enough fucking hate online and bullshit, you know, right? You know, our comment sections are flooded with hate. I know my Facebook is. So I have you here, and I've got to ask you, bro. There's so many stereotypes about Appalachia. What are the ones that piss you off the most? And like, what, you know, why are they misinformed? And what can we do about changing that perception?
That we vote against our own interests. You know, it's easy to see that. It's easy to say it. You know, we're down here. West Virginia is the second most conservative state. But what people don't realize, much like Elliott County, we used to be blue for 80 years. We had a Democratic trifecta here. And guess what? No matter who is in office, we were blue for 80 years. We are the second most red state in the country. We're still poor. We're still poor. And so it really bugs me when people say, "Oh, these folks are just voting against their interests." You know, West Virginia is home to the largest labor uprising that has, to this date, has ever happened in the United States of America. This is 1921, the Battle of Blair Mountain. It is when multiracial coal miners took up arms against a government that was in bed with the coal companies. It was the only employer in the state. You lived on their land. You shopped at their stores. You got paid in their money. In this state, white miners, black miners, every race and creed out there rose up in what is still the largest labor uprising. So when you just look at it and you reduce it to voting against your own interest, or that people aren't smart enough to be appealed to, that really bugs me, because I think with the right leadership speaking to what this state knows and what's part of its history, could be part of shifting power back to the working class. And I think that's true for many states and areas across the country, where the only thing you hear say about them is that they vote against their own interests.
Well, you are part of the solution, and you are part of that appeal to a new ecosystem of viewers. We're better informed about a very important part of the country and a very misunderstood part of the country. I remember being, I mean, gosh, this must have been in the early aughts. Diane Sawyer went down to Appalachia and did a big 2020 ABC special down there, and it was like trashed because she perpetuated this stereotype of the Mountain Dew drinking, toothless, you know, backwoods, speaking in tongues kind of, you know, people up there. And it's like people like you that are really showcasing the cornucopia of culture there. You know, it's not so black and white, man. You know, it's like really important what you're doing, man. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you think is important to know? How can we follow you? How can we keep up? Now's your time. Now's your time.
Yeah, plug for More Perfect Union. If you don't watch it, I'm at Hey John Russell everywhere on the internet. I don't write my newsletter, The Holler, on Substack enough, but if you would like to check it out, we're over there. And I want to send back some of the flowers to you, man. I think what you're doing is really interesting. It's really important, especially the way that you're doing it and how you got here now. And for everybody watching, never hesitate to support your friendly local independent media.
Amen, man. Fist up. Hell yeah. I love that. Dude, so nice to see you again, John. We'll talk soon, homie. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Good to see you. That was John Russell from More Perfect Union. How fun, man. I just one of the great journalists that I met there in Washington, D.C., part of the New Media Summit. Pew got us all together. We, along with John Russell, we are your top new media journalists in America, which is really cool to say. And it's really cool to be in this peer group with somebody. I mean it, man. So authentic and so awesome. We turn now to somebody else who's so authentic and so awesome, Dr. Robert White. Dr. Robert White is a friend of the show. He is a professor at Alabama State University, one of the first HBCUs in Montgomery, Alabama. And in full disclosure, it's where I got a Civil Rights Award, the Bob and Jean Gratz Award, earlier this year. It felt like, God, it feels like ages ago, but that was earlier this year. We're joined now by Professor Dr. Robert White. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, happy to be here, man.
Oh, so good to see. So good to see you, man. So good to see you. So let's talk about it. A big anniversary just passed. We wanted to try to get you on the show. Before that, we know you had some grading to get to, and we're really busy. But the Montgomery bus boycott, tell us about it.
Yeah, well, it was a 382-day protest that took place in December 1955, and there had been other protests along the economic fashion in other places before that, like in Tuskegee and Macon County. There was a Shop with Your Friends rally that arguably still exists to this day. And what you had was you had African Americans that withheld their dollars and withheld their ridership because of the way that they were treated. The Montgomery bus boycott was not about integration, it was about treatment.
Mhm.
And because African Americans were being treated so harshly on the buses and in public areas, kind of like now that, black people withheld their money, carpooled, and came up with other creative ways of illustrating just how powerful their dollar was. And so you had a court case that was filed by attorney Fred Gray, who was an ASU graduate as well. And I was his law clerk when I was in law school, attorney Fred Gray, called
Wow.
Browder versus Gale, that had four female plaintiffs: Aurelia Browder, Susan McDonald, Mary Louise Smith, and Claudette Colvin. The last two, Claudette Colvin and Mary Louise Smith, were teenagers. And that was the case that so-called integrated the buses. And Rosa Parks' arrest was the starting point for the Montgomery bus boycott. So we're celebrating 70 years of boycott history, and we're relooking at. We've written a book called Highway 80, which has chapter 2 dedicated to the bus boycott and the things that happened after the boycott. And what the gentleman from A More Perfect Union was saying falls so much in line with me personally and with our research, because one, I'm a union representative. I don't know if you know that or not. And we have a radio show called Lunch with Labor, wherein we talked about the coal miners in Appalachia and how that could be used as an example on how to bridge the gap. But one
Wow.
thing that the civil rights movement brings to the table that I don't hear people talking about is the fact that, okay, like you saw the videos of those people giving, showing their allegiance to Trump, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's not the target group, right? The target group is their children. See, because if you get children to turn, they'll turn on their parents. And I
Hmm.
know that sounds
Hmm.
weird, but the civil rights movement had just as much to do with generation gap than it had to do with economic gap or
Tell
color
us
gap.
about it. It's getting the
Well,
youth and
well,
trying to understand and change their
absolutely,
mentality of what they were
absolutely,
poisoned with by their forefathers, I guess, right?
absolutely, absolutely. See, the civil rights movement was mostly fueled by young people. And that's something that has been taken out of the narrative, right? Martin Luther King was a young man, but you
Right.
had most of the marchers, organizers, most of the fighters, most of the people that were the bus riding from the riders from that went from city to city, the freedom
Hmm.
riders
Hmm.
were young people, teenagers. And so they had actually defied their parents in doing what it was that they did. So if I had I'm an evangelist, so you drop me in places in Appalachia and just leave me there, and I tell you, come back and get me in a couple of days. Well, what I would have done was I would have gotten the young people to turn on their parents. See, because that's the whole thing. See, because you'll have people that are really in a bad mental state, right? Well, they'll vote against their best interest every day. You see, that's what they call normal. And you can't beat that. You see, but their children are the ones that's gonna stand up. So they do everything they can to keep their children from knowing the truth. You see? But when the children know the truth, the first thing they're gonna do is they're gonna go to their parents and say, hey, you're wrong in this area. And you're so wrong in this area, I'm gonna go in this direction. Now, with those people that are so diehard Trump, although Trump is operating totally against their best interest. That's not new. That is as old as dirt. But this is what happens. You get that group to stay at home on voting day. They're not going to ever vote against their conscience, but they will stay at home. You
You
see what
know,
I'm saying?
I hear you, but then I
Yeah,
also saw what President Trump was saying at the Kennedy Center honors on Sunday. He
sure.
was talking about how no Republican wins the young vote. I won the young vote. I do great with the youth. And you do see those folks out there. You see Prager University, the elements that they're putting out there and trying to recreate and rewrite the narrative of Thanksgiving and Christopher Columbus and history. You see these younger college Republicans who are not only embracing or embraced
That's
a guy
true.
like Charlie Kirk, a guy like Nick Fuentes,
Yeah,
like
that's true.
that's what concerns me, Dr. White, when I see
Well,
that and
but see,
the
here's the thing, though,
traction
Nick.
that's being made.
But see, here's the thing, though, Nick. Most of them kids out there are for the hot dog, the T-shirt, and to get on TV. They could care less. And then you have a very, trust me, I'm around college students. I've been around college students 30 years. They
Oh,
don't
I
give a
know.
darn. You see what I'm saying? But the thing is that who is engaging them from our side? And the answer is nobody. See, you don't have people comparable to them on college campuses engaging college students as well. So
Right.
that's a lack of vision in the, and I'll just say it because I don't like them, Democratic leadership. You see
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Those people are the most visionless, pointless people, bourgeois, elitist nobodies that you're gonna find. And all they're concerned with is their own power and having their own position. They're not concerned with winning. They just want to make things look good. So now we are having to go back and rehash. You see what I'm saying? What it took to get us where we were. And what it did was we had to knock on doors. We had to talk to people. We had to get spit on. We had to, we had maybe had a couple fist fights. You see what I'm saying? But the thing is that you got to engage people in the street and you got to hit them with the truth. And that still works. So with the Appalachia people, do you know the number one artist, entertainment artist in Appalachia? Do you know who it is?
No.
Lil Bootsy. Now, you see what I'm saying? So what you could do, Lil Bootsy could go on an Appalachia tour and turn the place out. Who's gonna be there? Teenagers.
Yeah.
You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You
Yep.
got to get the young people to turn on their parents.
I
You
have a
see what I'm
question.
saying?
During the Montgomery bus boycott, this type of
Yes.
class warfare that we're seeing right now and this classism that exists and the billionaires that just get more powerful, or back then, I guess it was the multimillionaires. Did the class warfare exist or is this something new?
Good question. It has always existed, but it's not a Marxist dichotomy. You see what I'm saying? What you had in Montgomery was, and I know this sounds weird, but just like the French Revolution was a bourgeois revolution, the Haitian Revolution was pretty much a bourgeois revolution. The Montgomery bus protest was a bourgeois revolution. It was middle class black people that were revolting against the treatment because they thought that they should have been better treated, and that's
Mm.
written. You see what I'm saying in the thing. However, what you also had was you had a middle class operating on behalf of a lower class. But here's the false assumption. The false assumption that during Jim Crow, Reconstruction of Jim Crow, all black people were poor, and that's not true. You had black businesses. You had a serious economic hub in Alabama that they ran an interstate through, Interstate 85, and we wrote a chapter on this in our book on how roads, bridges, thoroughfares were used to decimate economic hubs within the black community. So you have a well-devised plan, to undermine these things, and that's what a deep dive study of the Montgomery bus protest brings to the table. Just what are the factors, how to address them, and what did they not know when they did what they did. Uh, I did a peer-reviewed journal article called "Stop Fishing," and it's how police violate Fourth Amendment rights. I mean, God dog, Nick, is that new to us?
No.
Okay, then, all right. Well, we
10
might as
and
well
2,
move on.
music off, look ahead, yes sir, no sir. I got the talk to. This is it's not new.
Exactly,
They call me an
exactly.
affirmative action hire. Now it's
There you
DEI.
go.
It's
There
the
you
same
go. There
shit,
you go.
it's different
See,
things here.
but see, you're an Emmy award winning DEI hire. You see what I'm saying? You darn right. Now give me
Hey,
my
Dr.
money.
White, you think boycotts would exist, work, and are they as effective as they were back in the day? I mean, the Montgomery bus boycott was so effective. It gave, so much momentum to the movement. And right now there's like the Target boycott, right, and the blackouts. Is it the
Well,
same? Why isn't
but
it
see,
the same?
Nick, watch this. What if when Michigan play Ohio State in basketball, every Negro and every Latino on the court walk off? See, at the Super Bowl, every black person that play on it just walk off the field and leave all that crap sitting right there on the 50-yard line and say, look, y'all play your own darn football game.
Hmm.
See, that would freak everybody out. And then all the people in Las Vegas, all the people that everything are going to come to us and say, what is it that you want? You see what I'm saying? What do we have to do to get y'all back on the field like y'all were 200 years ago? You see, what does it gonna take to get you to shoot the ball and chuck the football and run like you do and dance like you do afterward? Cause we love that type of stuff. Cause we ain't gonna do it. You see what I'm saying? See, all you got to do, and that's why they try to silence people like Colin Kaepernick and all that type of stuff. See, I
Yeah, but
wouldn't
he
have
is so
done.
uniquely himself. All these other athletes, they're taking the money. They're
Well, I
they're they're
wouldn't have.
part
Yeah,
of this, you know. They
yeah,
they want to
yeah.
be part of this, or they've been to Trump, or they think that he's so great and they want to be part of this.
Yeah. But see, the whole point is that's because there is no other alternative message out there. MAGA is nothing but a public relations campaign. That's
Yeah,
all it is. And
yeah.
I admire the Republican right because they listen. See,
Mm.
Cambridge
They
Analytica
fall
was a
in
bunch of
line. They fall
yeah.
in line.
Well, Cambridge Analytica. See if we can get specific. Cambridge Analytica wasn't nothing but a bunch of college dropouts that didn't nobody want to listen to. And Donald Trump and Steve Bannon were both Democrats. You see what I'm saying? They just despised the Democratic leadership. But where's our public relations campaign? Where's our Cambridge Analytica? You see what I'm saying? Where's our? There is none. So how can you? How it looks like that they've taken over. It looks like when hell we go into a football game with no offense. It's just a defense. You see?
And they're
So
whispering all something different into each one of our ears and turning us against each other, man. That's what's
exactly, but we
happening.
don't. But we don't have a hustle either. Nick, you from the
I
street, Nick.
know.
You know you got
I
to have a
know.
hustle, man. You got to have a game. And when you don't have one, you see what I'm saying? Then you fall victim to people that do. So you got your former employer seeing that they show the same
Right.
old stuff, show the
Right.
same old questions, same old lame people up there, the Hollywood squares, everybody trying to talk over each other. In fact, you get nothing from that. Well, where is the consolidated campaign? There is none. So they're gonna keep getting their butt kicked. And I say, well, that's what happens to you when you don't prepare, and you leave the social sciences out of stuff. That's exactly what you get. Get
Not
us
not effective
involved.
communicators, you know. We talked about this before. It's like those guys who have all the money, they're not doing really well at effectively communicating the message. The nerds didn't do a good job during COVID at effectively communicating the message. They're bad PR on the left. And in that vein, I want to ask you, is there anyone on the left that you're inspired by, politicians or any sort of pop culture or people that are adding to the conversation right now?
No. All all of my heroes are dead. and so I mean, but think about it. Could Donald Trump survive with a Richard Pryor or Dick Gregory or anybody like that living? A Flip Wilson, you see what I'm saying? Or people that had an understanding of culture, a Red Fox, you see what I'm saying?
Right,
See,
right.
you see what I'm saying? So the whole point is that when you don't have the activists leading the way, you know, I mean, we had Harry Belafonte, you see what I'm saying? We had some big name people that were supplying the movement with money, Mahalia Jackson and all of that. But when you got football players in cities that are making hundreds of millions of dollars and they're not determining who the mayor is,
Hmm,
do you know the Philadelphia Eagles could determine who the mayor of Philadelphia is?
sure.
The Atlanta Falcons could, but there's nobody taking that message to them. You see what I'm saying? So when you don't have that message being took to them, then other people come in and they seduce them, right, with their money, or they're able to talk their talk and make it sound like they're on their side. You see?
That's right.
So
That's right.
so so we got to come up with a gimmick. You know what I'm saying? We got to come up with a hook and attack, because when Trump go out, they not gonna have nobody. And so we're gonna have to reverse all of this madness that they did. It's been done before, and there have been people that have been way more crafty at doing it than Trump them. You
No,
see what
there's
I'm saying?
seriously going to be a power vacuum for sure. There's no one that's going to step up into that void. Trump is singularly himself, you know. I mean, there are other people who I'm sure are going to try to take that title once he's gone.
Well, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, it seems like we've been having to deal with him forever. You know,
yeah.
it
But see
feels like
what?
he's
But
just.
see, who was the prime minister of Russia after Stalin? You
I don't
don't
tell
know.
me.
See, because who took over after Hitler? You don't know, do you? See, because those people suck all the air out the room, and when you're leading a bunch of nobodies, which is what's now. You got him at the top, and everybody else is a minion. Everybody else is a
Yeah.
sycophant. Everybody else is a nobody. Then see, no, the thing about nobodies is that they can never become somebodies. You see
Right.
what I'm saying?
There's
And you're
no
not gonna
oxygen
have.
for anyone else. He
There
he
you go.
throws it. Yeah, he tamps
There
it
you
out.
go.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and this is what you do. This is what we say because like I said, you from the street. You got to talk trash. Just tell us, say, look, you say, look, y'all Republicans, look, y'all get it all in now. I mean, whip us good because buddy, buddy, when we get back in power, you see what I'm saying? When we get back in power on day one, on day two, you see what I'm saying? You're gonna wish you never saw a elephant. You see what I'm saying? You better run for the. I hope Russia is ready for you, because that's the only place you're gonna be able to run. Because we gonna come after that tail. You know what I'm saying? You going. Steve Bannon said it. Steve Bannon said it. He said, y'all. He said we got to do something now. He said because when Trump get out, we all going to jail. He said it.
Man, it
You see
takes
what I'm saying?
courageous politicians, and I don't know. I get hopeful when I have some of them on here that they're going to speak truth to power. I don't
Man,
know if my peers think the
Nick,
same. Yeah,
Nick,
I know. I know.
Nick. It ain't gonna happen, man. They're a bunch of cream puffs. You know what I'm saying? And so they ain't worth a quarter. That's why all politics are local. See, because what you could do in Appalachia, right? See, let Lil Boosie come through there. See what I'm saying? And then you got to win local elections first. See, you got to fight at the city council level, county commission level.
Yeah,
Forget Congress, forget all of that, right? Now
school
you're gonna
boards.
be you're gonna be turning on some of your friends. And it's fun now. Once you do it, it's fun. It's fun. You're gonna be turning on them, and then you're gonna be talking about them in front of their children. See, because you got to shame them. See, shame is good, right? Shame is good. You got to talk about. You got to call them names. You see what I'm saying? You got to point fingers at them, accuse them of all kind of crazy stuff, and then the tide gets to, and then you end up winning majority on the city council, majority on the county commission. You see, then you can go to them data centers, and see you just show up at the data center. You know what I'm saying? And bring Junebug, Willie Lee, Maine. Bring you know, bring Hector, Javier. You see what I'm saying? Jorge. You see what I'm saying?
Oh,
And have a cookout in the parking lot, and you see what I'm saying? And all
that's
of
it.
that.
I'll
And say,
bring
well,
the
listen,
carne asada, man. You got it.
all of it, all of it, all of it. And see, and then you say, well, look, we noticed what y'all profits were, and what y'all gonna need to do is come off of a third of that. See what I'm saying?
I
See,
mean, we
it's
didn't
there
even get
now. You
into
can't
it.
do
They're
nothing about it.
diverting all the property taxes is going right back into the state instead of the public services. They've got all sorts of plans there
Yeah.
in
See,
Appalachia, and they're
see,
just steamrolling those plans and those
yeah,
that community. It's
yeah.
terrible.
See,
It's
we dealing with
terrible.
that in Alabama, and we writing a book. And my man there from More Perfect Union, if you want to write a little bit, let me know. The title of the book, the title of
Dr.
the book is
White.
called. The title of the book is called "Global Warming or Burning House." That's what it's called. And we're gonna talk about environmental justice and civil rights justice, how the two meet. So, Nick, I want you to be a part of that too. It's powerful.
On
He got some
anything you're a
powerful
part of,
writers.
man. Count me, sign me up. I will see you in Alabama very soon. We'll talk about that February and March. We didn't even get a chance to talk about the Selma anniversary. We'll have you back on the show to talk about that and promote that.
All right, man, and maybe you can drop me off like $1,000 a month, man, for being your correspondent to the hood.
We'll talk to you later, Dr. White. Oh God, we love everybody that comes on this program. It's especially Dr. White, man. He's always brings the energy and the enthusiasm. He always has me on the edge of my seat. I never know what direction he's gonna go and what he's gonna say. That's a smart man right there. Smart man, tapped into the culture and tapped into the community. That was our show today, guys. So grateful for you guys stopping by. We got into a lot. American citizens currently testifying still right now on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. We have 2 of those 5 U.S. citizens. The attorney of them, he joined us on the show, Michael Carrillo, civil rights attorney doing great work out of Los Angeles and beyond. And we're also joined by John Russell from More Perfect Union, who really pulled the layer back on what's going on in Appalachia, the haves and the have-nots, and this idea of this classist warfare that's happening, pitting us against each other. Really fascinating discussion. And of course, as always, joined by Dr. White, professor there at Alabama State University in Montgomery, one of the legendary HBCUs. So that's our show. We really appreciate you keeping up with us. We're going to be keeping an eye on what's going on in Minnesota, where it seems that the Trump deportation forces are picking up their aggressive tactics. And right before I hopped on this show, just really one thing that I saw that was just so upsetting. When we hear so often from conservatives to do it the right way, We saw a video that shows us that it doesn't matter whether or not people are doing it the right way. A truck driver who was here in this country with a legal work permit, who had a pending asylum claim, taken into custody anyway by Border Patrol agents who were well aware of his immigration status. They didn't care. Do it the right way, it doesn't matter. It seems that Trump and his deportation forces want everyone here who they think doesn't belong here gone. Thank you guys so much for paying attention to what we have to say, for helping us make truth go viral. And as always, guys, go out there, enjoy your Tuesday, enjoy your rest of the week, and have a great day on purpose. Love y'all.